How y'all doing? Back in 2020, a YouTuber named Razorfist publishes his first book, and it's a book that is nice, short, simple, and sweet, and incorporates elements of pulps, and particularly fantasy, crime, and noir. That is The Long Moonlight. It's a story of a thief in the city of Manuvia who is caught in a gang war between two rival crime bosses and how he overcomes them. Well, as of 2023, the second book is just now published. Let's take a look. Our story begins with Xerdes traveling west from the city he once operated in, into the Nazgûl Desert, and into the city of Karazhan, where thievery is legal on the condition you have proper permission, so he has to watch out. But while at the inn there, Xerdes is offered a job at a barkeep. See, the barkeeper was wanting him to help find his wife, and it doesn't sound like something you hire a thief for, at least if you're just a simple barkeep. But the barkeep sort of tells him that he was once a noble who was stripped of his titles and lands, at least on paper. His precious wife there afterwards runs off from time to time. He's hiring Xerdes to bring her back. Not giving too much of a reason on why she ran away this time. One can suspect, and which Xerdes does. Now, what's in it for Xerdes? Well, at first he was given a very weak reward for this, but the barkeep says, now look, even though I'm stripped of my titles, my estate is so far away, they haven't been able to go out there to collect anything for them, after that. So his vault should still have some money in there for him to, if he finds his wife, he can have whatever's in there. Xerdes takes up on the offer and begins his journey. Of course, if the barkeep was true to Xerdes about anything, traveling to his former estate to find his wife is not going to be an easy task. He has to travel through a long stretch of land on foot, in a desert. On top of that, the area is famous for its ghost winds, adding a degree of difficulty to that. And then he faces a band of boards, a reptilian race that travels around the deserts and even try to take over the capital, reclaiming it as theirs, and what have you. Then, of course, the wind serpents just right out the side of the city, and within the city, that's these creatures right here you see on the cover. And when he reaches the city, he does find Shanna, the barkeep's wife, who with her is a hired thug, and threatening him to, hey, we need you to open up this vault here, and despite all the treasure that's in it, they just want one particular item out of that. A piece of treasure that will be the central point of all the struggles and manipulations that Xerdes is surrounding himself with, and means a lot to all the characters that he's involved. What is this piece of treasure? Why is everyone fighting for it? How much is everybody telling the truth, if at all? Does Xerdes buy any of it? Well, that's to be found out. In addition, in the background of all this, out in the desert, there's this creature, a wraith, that has a mask on it. Is shambling along, and is with a silver blade, and anybody it comes across with, and tries to attack it, he kills them all. And when word about this, wraith is about, they send in assassins and soldiers after it, none survive. What do we know about this, wraith-like being? We don't know. All we know is just says the name Xerdes. What is Xerdes' connection with this? How does Xerdes get past all of the obstacles that he's facing with the wraith and people manipulating him in this desert city? I won't give out too much away because it's not that long of a book, and you should read it. You should. It's pretty good. So, Razor, again, like the first book, keeps the story in the pulp format. It is nice, short, and sweet, and to the point, plot-driven. It gives you a lot of excitement here, but still keeps you mystery. He tries to make it to where you start off, first sentence tries to keep you interested in it, and the last sentence, leaves you wanting more, and I think he accomplishes that. Now, I say both stories are around 100 pages, but the second book is a little thicker. Why is that? Well, on the gaming stream, Razor asked everyone, for little extras in that. He gave the people who on that stream a choice. Do they want an extra story with Xerdes or an appendix that talks about the world? Well, based on the vote, we have an appendix talking about the world. So if you want to know about, this book will tell you about the lands, the people who live in this area, what their government structures are like. It talks about the races, humans. We are introduced board. We even the wolf-like Pharaoh's son. Right here, who we meet, who I didn't mention in the review, but there's one character that shows up of that race. There's a wing of people up north and what have you, even a possible underground race of mole-like creatures. So, it tells you good information about the world, but leaves you just enough to want more, and that's where he wants that. And with reading the appendix as it is, again, the appendix gives a geography, talks about history, talks about even a calendar, and a nice little glossary. All right there. That tells you enough. I think it's for people who want to get into the world, and hopefully you see more stories based on that. And based on what he writes on this, I am kind of curious of where he would go with his character Xerdes. I don't want to tell him what to write. I want to let him try this. I want him to surprise me on this. Of course, like good pulps, it has interior artwork. There are two artists in this. There is George Alexopoulos. He does the interior art for the story, but for the appendix, that's Razor's art himself. So, I think it's cool that they did that because it helps refine the look of the world to guide you how it should look and how it should feel. Of course, there's always your mind's eye and make it how you ever want. So, the artwork is great. If there's one critique I had, the maps are a little faint, so it is kind of hard to, follow along with locations as described in the appendix. But I could get over that. Again, you want some of the mystery to help guide you forward and see what else happens next. Mentioning the size of these stories there, I've actually met people from time to time that tell me they want their fantasies to be, these big, long, detailed, stories and what have you. I could see why they would like that, and I see where they came from. Lord of the Rings is 3 books plus a similar in Hobbit. In addition to that, even science fiction has this as well. We got Frank Herbert's Dune, but mostly in fantasy with Lord of the Rings and George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. Brian Sanderson he's got these big novels, and when I go to places like Barnes & Noble today, a lot of these fantasies has to be these really thick books from 500 to 800 pages, and and I've met people that seem to want that. Okay, publishers are trying to make whatever money they can, so they try to look for something to make the most of it. As Mike Moorcock once written in his blog years ago, they find a common denominator to make the most money. So if things like George R. R. Martin's big fantasy series is what's selling, they got to find another series of only a format. But we're missing something out of this. We shouldn't ignore the shorter formats of the pulps, the short stories, novels, what have you. Look, I'm not saying we should all go back to the past and that to that. I'm guilty of this myself. I got my own selection of fantasies like that are thick and have a lot of details in a series. And sorry, wrong stack. This is the one. This big stack of books, which is 6. 6 books, and I'm one short. This is our Scott Baker's fantasy series, Prince of Nothing, the Aspect Warrior series. All jokes aside, these have their place. I think a writer should tell their story however long they think their story needs to be told, as long as there's people willing to read it. But you shouldn't ignore the shorter format stories, the heart of it. Harlan Ellison, years ago, back in 2006, you can find this video on YouTube, had a snide remark by Robert Heinlein's wife at the Hugos, who she came up to him and said, "Yeah, you won more Hugos than anyone else, but my husband got it through the novel." Harlan tells in this speech, telling the story, says the short story is the heart of the genre. He was talking about science fiction, but I think it goes double so for fantasy. Is where writers begin, start their writing careers is where they find their voice. Not to mention fantasy had to start through word of mouth shorter stories. Yes, it has epic fantasy, epic stories like in Homer and all that, but from fairy tales and folklore, these shorter formats. And also with the adventure, the short story, this is where writers begin to tell and shape, their voice into nice, concise stories. They're not all winners. You can make that argument and say there's a whole lot of crap about that. Well, there's also a lot of crap in the longer format too. It just takes you longer there to find out. So I think it is good that if people like Razor are going back into the past, into past formats like the pulps to give you short, sweet stories and tells you the character, it still make you interested in it. So that is Death Mass as book 2 of After the Long Moonlight Nightvale series. You can get it in any way you can want to read your books. You can get it in paperback. You can get it in hardcover. I got the signed ones here. The signed ones are no longer available. You still get the hardcovers available from Arkhaven Comics, and you go get it from Amazon, what have you. There's even, but what if you like ebooks? There's an ebook version. There's even an audio version, which is read by Razor himself. If you go, there's also a Crypto Fashion website there that has Nightvale stuff, t-shirts from both the first and second books, a poster of the first one, even a bookmark. So yes, however you want to read your material in fantasy through physical copies or in electronic versions, it's available for Nightvale series. Give it a go. I think it's a start of a wonderful series and traditions of fantasy where it started off with the pulps. The character is interesting, and I'm looking to see more. Thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.